Thanks very much, Jamie. Jamie came up with this idea yesterday just to give us a few minutes just to plug the DFA, and we certainly appreciate that. Before I start, I'd just like to introduce the executive because some of you may know them and some of you may not. So obviously I'm John Summerall, the chairman, and it's Justin Stevens from Marlborough, Grant Charteris from Hawke's Bay, and Mark McCord from Taihape. And Mark's just come on since this morning. You're officially on board, so welcome aboard, Mark. So, and I guess part of the plug is the DFA as an organisation, as we think is vital to the industry in linking the farmers with DINs and as farmers for farmers, but often a lot of what we do goes under the radar, and sometimes a lot of people ask the question, well, what does the DFA do? And so we thought in the short time span that we've got here to this afternoon, we'd pick up on four main subjects that we've been heavily involved in the last 12 months and just give a brief overview of what those have been and what the DFA involvement has been in that. And so Justin is going to talk on farm succession, Grant's going to talk about the next generation program, and Mark's going to talk about our involvement with the RCS program with the Velvet. And so I'm going to start talking about the DFA's involvement with the environmental sustainability on farms, and obviously the DFA is an important part of that because obviously we need the resources of DINs and the expertise of the likes of Lindsay and now with Phil on board. But I think a lot of people don't realise that when it comes to the local level, when you're doing submissions of local councils and that, having that farmer input and having that branch structure and having members from a branch that actually come along and backed by Lindsay's expertise in that, it makes a really good package. And councils are always really impressed when farmers turn up and say their stories. We mightn't be as articulate as professionals, but it affects us and we say how it is. And that always works really well, and I think it's always taken us in good stead. And another aspect of the environmental side that we're involved in is obviously some DFA members are involved in the high level, particularly with the P2P program. There's a lot of strategy worked out. Many of our members are involved in those committees that Lindsay talked about, where we look at the strategy and where we put our resources on the environmental side, and a lot of that is invisible, but it is important part of putting the farmer's side of the story across in all those projects. And another thing is just a lot of stuff that happens in various regions, from field days to workshops. You might have seen, I think recently that, for example, that the Canterbury branch organised a day with auditors from Environment Canterbury and invited farmers along, and so that is an example of the local branch working with the council. And I know myself down south, Lindsay come down and another guy from the DFA and that, and we went around a lot of farms and the local branch and everybody who helped get farmers along to a workshop and that. So it is an example of what the DFA does at the ground level, often invisible, but it is an important part of getting the farmer's voice across and helping farmers. So I'll end on that, and now I'll pass over to Justin talking his. Thanks.
Thanks, John. So with the farm succession, it really started about almost 2 years ago, next generation, and we had a few workshops and they went well. There was a lot of ideas went round, and we saw it as a bit of a need that it's something that we always say, yeah, we'll get round to it. It's a bit like the retaining wall and the patio you got to do for your wife, but we just never quite get round to it. So, and it was at the DFA level, it was really Tony Pearce and ourselves sort of threw it around for a few meetings, and obviously with the help of DINS and the Sustainable Farming Fund. So all three groups came together to get it really across the line, and I think one on our own we wouldn't have done it. That's sort of, to be blunt. Our target was 90, to try and reach 90 to 100 different families, so we've reached that and surpassed it. And for those of you that have done it and been along to it, it wasn't really just to ever say this is what you should do. It was really just to start the discussion with Tony Hemington from peer review, and to sort of take it away yourself and develop it, and it's, it won't happen overnight, but it will happen. So, and that, is really, our hope from now is the guys that have done it to just, if you're talking to your neighbours or whatever, have you got a farm succession plan? What's going to happen? And, my parents, I used to joke with them that it was a form of child abuse, making you take over the family farm. But, at the end of the day, I probably wouldn't really like to be doing anything else. So that was farm succession. Now I'll call on the wonderful grant charterist to enthrall you all.
That's a good segue talking about succession, because as a DFA quite a few years ago, probably 6.5 years ago, we recognised an opportunity, as in within any business, any business will not be sustainable if it hasn't got succession. And succession, as far as leadership and governance, is the forefront of the DFA. So our vision was, if we want to get the next generation involved in an industry, we have to create an environment where, as an industry, we're a small industry, but we're geographically spread across the whole nation. So that's where the next generation idea came about, to get 50 or 60 young, like-minded deer farmers from around the country, and give them an environment where they can network, build up relationships, and also and use it as a learning experience. We all know about the next generation. This has gone really well over the last 6 years, coming into the 7th year this year. Hopefully in the planning process we're going to head to Tekapo, based in the sort of Timarua area, and visit a few places around there, and obviously we'll work on a theme that we always do. But that's all well and good, and they're going really well. Back at the start, our vision, our response when we went out to the branches was, we don't know how we can help you because we haven't got many young people around. And we've proved that wrong, because of its success. All of a sudden, every year, it's being oversubscribed, and we couldn't ask for more than that. And that's great, because they're just flooding in every year. We've got people that want to do it again, and we're sort of having to say, maybe sit back and let some new people come on. We've got schools and training institutes that we're taking portions of people from. So it's working as a really good conduit to do what we want to do. But, and it's come up over the last couple of days, the next step and the real challenge for us is, how do we engage those people from that really awesome environment and get them involved in the branch network and take them that next step? And that answer's not easy, but I think one sort of parallel I bring from the last few days is, people have said the advanced parties have taken away the branch activity, and I don't agree with that, because the advanced parties are doing a marvellous thing, and if the advanced parties weren't there, would you be doing any more branch activity? I think they're doing a fantastic thing, but what we have to do is make sure as branches we're still doing stuff that encourages that younger generation coming through, get them involved in your committee. You can't ask someone just to turn up to a branch AGM and chuck them a job and expect them to be enthusiastic about it. So I think our task as deer farmers in New Zealand is to engage that next generation, involve them in what we're doing, and make sure what we're doing is what they want to do, take on their ideas, and encompass the next generation's ideas. I've just heard from speakers just before saying how everyone's thinking differently. It's a new generation. We're the ones that have got to embrace that and let them lead us forward. And just to finish on, what success for us is in 10 years' time, the next generation panel is sitting here and we're sitting back there. Thank you.
Well, as John mentioned before, I'm the new boy on the block, probably not going to be near as polished as the other three, so you might have to make some small allowances for me. The regulatory control scheme, which was pretty much started just over 12 months ago, is one of the bigger things to hit our industry as far as a regulatory change. And I think by and large it's been very positively supported. It started out as a bit of an elephant in the room, and a lot of the end up has been very positive. There are probably a few people in here that aren't familiar with the scheme, but it started from our markets overseas wanting a higher standard in cleanliness and hygiene from where our velvet is removed right through the cold chain management. And yeah, so it was, from that point, it sort of, it evolved and basically ended up in being kicked around in a consultation process where all the stakeholders got involved and other industry groups, and it ended up with a document being tabled, a legal document. And it's fair to say at that point there was a lot of discussion about what should be done. Some farmers felt they had to rebuild their whole shed. Others wanted to turn it into a paper plane and fly it back to Wellington. But the reality is that the outcome from it has been very positive. One of the most positive outcomes from where I stand is looking at all of the parties that were involved and how well they worked together. I'm fairly new to the DFA, so it was an eye-opener for me. The DFA's got a network, a national network of deer farmers and committees in every region. So the tight timeframes that were sort of put upon us meant that everyone sort of had to get behind it quite quickly. And with the DFA, they started shed meetings countrywide, and that allowed the likes of Tony Pearce, John Taken, and other speakers to come along with products and ideas that farmers could take home as a practical idea in their own sheds. And then once home, discuss it amongst their peers. And then beyond that, the NVSB, or the National Velveting Standards Body, they back that up with the continuing on of the program for sort of regulating and inspecting the sheds. And the great game behind that was that we've retained we're still responsible and front-footing our own industry. We haven't got another party coming in and telling us what to do. We've done enough to keep ahead of it. And you know, there's been a lot of positive feedback. Some of the guys have, you know, wished they'd done it years ago. That's been the farmers, that is. They've been really enjoying the facility they now have to work in. The other side of it, as I mentioned, is that we are still front-footing it. And I think with the amount of regulation that's coming down the pipe, I think there's been a lot of it today, that structure and those organisations all working together are going to be increasingly more important. We have less political support than perhaps we did, and our farmer groups working well together is going to be key. And I think at the moment they are working all really well together. Have I missed anything? Yeah, so I think that's probably the key take-home message, is use the shed or the RCS scheme as a framework of what can be done and a successful sort of approach. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie, for giving us the time. And as you can see, that's just 4 examples. But when people say, what does the DFA do? Well, the DFA does quite a lot. And we've got, obviously, we have our challenges, but we've got programs in place and ideas of how we can future-proof our organisation. And the DFA has always been an important part of the industry and always will be. And as farmers, we've got to ensure that it is. And we're obviously working towards ensuring that we have young leadership and young people involved coming through in the future. So thanks very much, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Is there any, got time? Is there any questions? They're keen to answer some questions and ask them some really hard ones.
Are we going to have one question? One question. We've got time for a question.
Except from him, yeah.
There we go. There is.
Yeah. Just want to reiterate what you said, Grant, about the next generation thing being oversubscribed each year, and with the framework of the DFA membership, just dropping off a little bit, is we've just got to get those branches to cater for those next generation guys to be involved, because, as you say, they are the ones that we want to see coming forward, and I think there's a conduit there for them to become more of a part of each branch, and maybe that means us as the older heads in the branch looking at what activities need to be run.
just one comment, Mark, I'd like to make, and I think it was a plug for the DFA here, John, as well, was that the NVSB thing, with that RCS being put in place, it was a DFA with their network that enabled us to get on the farm to actually get that thing through so fast, and that was something that I don't think it was made a strong point of. It was a DFA that had the network that enabled us to get on farm and get that RCS thing across the road.
Yeah, thanks for that, Paddy. And just to add on that, I think that network is underestimated, and even the advanced parties, which have been very successful, it is often the DFA network and branches that got a lot of those APs underway, and shouldn't be underestimated. It's part in that, and many of our members are quite active members in the APs.
And one more back here.
So we've got a limited number, I wouldn't say half of the audience is women. How do we allow and make it more amenable for women to become more active within the DFA and the DINs?
Who wants to answer that? It's a very good question. Well, we like to think that they have every chance of being active in the DFA. So, no, it hasn't. So it's we have quite a lot of branches have a representation. But I know what you mean. But it's
Stand up and be counted.
yeah. But everyone is welcome, and so.
Yeah, cool.
What I meant by that, I don't want to be taken the wrong way. Yeah, no, but I want to clear my name here. Is the fact that
Well, you're live on TV.
is the fact that I would actually like, what I would have meant by stand up and counted, I would like to see the females sitting on this and sitting on Din's board. I mean, there's plenty of females within the dairy industry doing a fantastic job, and that's what I meant by that throwaway comment that probably got taken the wrong way. So.
Yeah, no, I didn't target you in it either. So, but just reinforce, we have got a lot of women active within the next generation. They come along and they're actively farming, as well as in the farm partnership. We've got the different ranges. So, and I know with one of the next generation sessions a few years ago, it was how do we actually make it was a creche available so that the younger couples could actually come along and accommodate the kids and care for that so they could participate. But it's also how do we time some of the activities so that the women that are often the ones holding the fort, but they're also heavily involved in a lot of the environmental stuff. They're also heavily involved in those advanced parties. So, and they're chairs of those advanced parties as well. So it's accommodating the time frame sometimes to actually make it more amenable for this sort of thing, and they add a different flavour.
Yeah, I think there's some very good points there, and sometimes you've got to ask the question: is what do certain people, what do women want to become more involved? And so perhaps we do have to, change to make that possible.